The Prime Minister and many of his other ministers out pitching their latest budget today, arguing, as you heard there, that they've tabled a responsible and fiscally restrained plan for the country with the investments that Canada needs. Not everyone, though, is buying what they're selling. Let's bring in the front bench to unpack some of the politics of all of this. With me this evening, former Deputy Director of Tax Policy to former Finance Minister Bill Morneau. Elliott Hughes is here. He's now a senior associate with Summa Strategies. Former Alberta Cabinet Minister Gary Mar is with us. He's the president and CEO of the Canada West Foundation. Former Communications Director to Jagmeet Singh, Melanie Richer, is here. She's now a strategic senior consultant at Earnscliffe Strategies. And our own CTV National News' Ottawa Bureau Chief Joyce Napier rounds the panel out. Hi, everybody. Good to see you this evening. Elliott, I'm going to start with you because you've been a part of the process of writing all this stuff. I think we had talked in other panels about how are they going to be able to thread the needle of making all these big investments, addressing affordability, and being able to actually say they're fiscally responsible. Do you think they have done so, and are Canadians buying it?
Well, I think that the government actually is, budgets are about making priorities. And I think the government has made a priority to spend money on healthcare. They've made a priority to spend money on the green economy, which is the economy of the future. And they've made, an investment in helping people through this tough time. I think it's going to be a lot harder for them to make the case that they're being fiscally responsible for that. They were caught between a rock and a hard place in politics here. They needed to make sure the NDP was kept happy. They had to take advantage of the fact that the investments in the green economy are happening now. The IRA that President Biden passed a few months ago in the United States is sort of happening now right in front of our eyes. And if we don't invest now, we're going to miss that boat. And, Canadians are feeling the pinch. And so they needed to sort of support them. The fact is, though, the economy is in a worse shape. Projections for the future growth are down. And so there's a squeeze on how much money the government has to be able to use and go out and spend on some of those things, which is what you see in this budget. You see the sort of spending going up, you see the deficits going up, and you see a longer track to try and get back to zero deficits. In fact, I don't think we saw that. And so I think that balance,
there is no track.
Right. And I think that balance is going to be extremely difficult for the government. I think the argument that they're going to have to make to Canadians about fiscal restraint is going to be challenged. But I think what they're hoping for is that this is the time that they need to invest in those important areas today for Canadians. And that if it means a little bit sort of insecurity when it comes to that longer fiscal track, it's worth that pinch.
Yeah, that's certainly the message that the Minister Gary was making earlier on the program, Minister Gould, who was here. I just find it really interesting that, that the time was almost, and Joyce made this point yesterday, I thought it was a great one, forced on them, right? By the United States on one hand, through their introduction of the Inflation Reduction Act. Even the minister admitted to me last night, I asked, would the scale and the scope of your response been what it is without that? And she said no, it likely would not have been. And then on the other hand, Elliott alluded to by Mr. Singh and the NDP, who have asked for very specific programs that, don't come cheap. $2.5 billion for the rebate, now $13 billion for the dental program. So it's kind of like the time was forced on them a bit.
Well, unlike Elliott, I've never been involved in the kind of depth that he has in preparing a federal budget. Simply looking at it, it's clear that spending is exceeding that of revenues. Here's one area where they're trying to make it up, and that's increased taxes. But there's two areas where I give the government a good mark on trying to do and a failing mark in the other one. Good thing is that they're trying to find ways to show leadership in reducing interprovincial trade barriers. Data that we've seen suggests that you might be able to increase your GDP by 2 or 3 or maybe even 4% by getting rid of interprovincial trade barriers where you're trading a lot more within the country. The second area that I would give the federal government a failing mark on is with respect to trade infrastructure. 2/3 of our GDP in Canada depend upon trade exports. And there's been precious little money spent on this area. And if you can't move it, you can't sell it. And I think it's really important to note that if we don't improve our trade infrastructure, the kind of strategies that the federal government wants to have, say, for example, in the Indo-Pacific region, are not going to be well met by our partners over there. They're going to see that we're not going to be able to get our product and our commodities to market, so they're going to start looking for other suppliers that can provide it. Chief among them being the United States, which is not only our biggest trade partner, it's also our biggest trade competitor. So I think trying to keep pace with the IRA is a good thing to some degree, but keeping pace with infrastructure spending that the United States is doing would also be something that would be paying for the infrastructure you need in order to generate the revenue so that you can afford things like dental care and other things that are listed in the budget documents.
Melanie, who do you think, if anyone in Canada, like who is this budget resonating with? Who are they? Who are the Liberals, if anyone, if you think, getting some wins with on this?
Right. Well, I think to the point of a few folks earlier, they've obviously decided their priority for the most part is healthcare and investment in clean tech. So I think folks who have really been having a hard time either accessing emergency rooms, accessing doctors, this will resonate with them. The dental care piece will also resonate with them. I thought your point yesterday where you said, Jagmeet and the NDP keep saying, we got this done, but do people actually know that Jagmeet got this done? So I think that that's something that the NDP needs to work on. I was pleased to see Mr. Singh come out today with the NDP caucus behind him with the podium artwork saying, we got this done, we got it done for you. So it'll be telling if that's actually going to move the needle or if the government will be able to get the win on that, because I do think that's helpful for folks, not just healthcare, but also to put money back in their pockets in a time where folks are really having a hard time. So I think those people who will be helped by those measures will be happy with the budget that they saw this week.
I sort of got the sense today from both the Liberals and the Conservatives, Joyce, that nobody thought that this budget would necessarily move the needle politically too much for them. And I say that because, for example, the Liberals telegraphed 99% of it in advance of it. And also the Conservatives today hold a press conference with their leader on the subject of crime, which of course is top of mind for Canadians right now. But it seems like they, not to say that they feel their arguments aren't warranted or their criticism isn't warranted, but it's not what they even wanted to focus on today.
Yeah, well, interesting also that the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister weren't in the House today, the day after a budget where we are like in the dark red now. It's not only the red, and with all due respect to Elliott, Bill Morneau did not talk about. I remember asking him in lockup every time, the former finance minister, so when are we going to balance the books? Just curious. And they kept telling me, you're always asking the same question, but it is a very important one. It is an important question. There's a lot of government wastage. Incredible amounts of government wastage. I think that's where they should all go to find money.
Well, to their credit, they are looking at cuts for 3%.
But what they are looking at is the tip of the iceberg in terms of the wastage. There are studies made by the the Parliamentary Budget Officer on that. There's a lot of wastage. I mean, they spent $20 billion on advice. $20 billion. That's a lot of money as well. Pharmacare, dental care, those are all fantastic things, but perhaps they should be means tested. I understand they all want to put their name and their faces, for posterity on these great programs, but these are very expensive programs which contribute to the structural deficit. And in a time like now where we really don't know, where it's so uncertain, the economic future is uncertain. Will there be a recession? What kind of recession will it be? Will it be mild? How about, productivity? We are not a productive country. So we've got to become more productive. Make these mean tested and give these people the dental care they need now. Because we've been talking about...
dental care is to a certain degree means tested, though, right?
Yes, but the NDP, if I'm understanding, want it to be a universal program, and pharmacare and dental care.
Well, pharmacare, for sure, they want it to be universal.
But perhaps, 3 out of 5 Canadians already have it. So, why do we need to put more government in this when, the government has grown by 28% under these Liberals? So that also is very costly. Hiring 28% more civil servants, it's going to cost tens of billions of dollars as well. So, I mean, why don't we look at those things? I know that everybody's looking at the shiny objects, but these are realities that this government has created.
My guess, Elliot, and I'll give the last word to you, is just that, and this is very crass politically, I don't think that the Liberals feel as though the people who support them are concerned about the things that Joyce laid out enough, or concerned enough that they'll take their votes everywhere. I don't know if that's the right calculations. That's just the sense that I get from them.
Yeah, I mean, to Joyce's point, I mean, I think there's some. It's fair. I mean, I think the fact that the government needs to look at itself and it needs to examine what kind of spending it's focusing on, what kind of consultants, travel, whatever the case is. But look, if we're talking pure politics here, and this is a politics show. If we're talking pure politics,
that's what I asked.
yeah, this government is focused on making sure that the people who vote for them know that they are there and have their back. And if that comes at a cost to running deficits, then it is a price that the government is willing to pay. But to Joyce's point, you do also need to show that you understand that it is important to have your fiscal house in order. And I think the government was challenged on that point with this budget. And I think the economic headwinds were very strong, and they didn't perhaps readjust as much as they should have, in my opinion, to sort of show that they understand of those economic challenges that are coming down, while also following through on those political priorities. So I don't think they quite struck the balance, if you're sort of asking for my opinion on it.